Today, we're actually filming a very special edition of Looking Up, A View from the Valley, and we're here with Ron Kraft, who is from the Valley, born and raised, and we're filming from Ansonia, just across from Nolan Field. And the reason Ron has agreed to be on the show is he has a very interesting story.
So we turned for this fighter jet,
Right.
And I'm just going to refer to him as Ghost. That was his name. That was his call sign, as Ghost.
Okay. Okay.
So Ghost aircraft is losing power rapidly.
Okay.
He's losing oil pressure rapidly, and he's doing his best to keep the aircraft afloat. But he's losing altitude.
Right.
The other engine, now being overtaxed, is overheating and only putting out about 30%. So
that's a two-engine plane?
Two-engine aircraft.
Okay.
And in these older F4s, if you lose one engine, you lose half your flight controls because you lose half your hydraulic systems.
Oh, wow.
So things are going from bad to worse to worse to worse.
So that's not the case with fighters today?
No, they're much more high-tech. Helicopters the same way. You lose an engine, there's crossover valves.
Okay.
There's double and triple checks.
Interesting. Okay.
He eventually loses that engine. The oil pressure got down so low. He said, I can't help it. I have to shut it down.
Right.
So he could only hope for, the best thing he could hope for at that point is that the engine just keeps spinning with air passing through it.
Right.
Okay.
Exactly. Sure.
As not to create more drag.
Right.
And even though it's freewheeling on its own, you'll have some oil pressure.
Okay.
Or hydraulic pressure.
Right. Right.
It wasn't the case. It seized. So he lost half his flight controls. So because he's losing altitude, he kicked in the afterburner in his other engine to try and get some altitude.
Right.
But with that, it was rolling his aircraft.
Well, yeah, because it's like spinning around.
Right, and he couldn't correct it because he lost half his flight control, so he can't turn right. So he normally would have turned right to straighten this thing out, but and then he said in one interview in the Stars and Stripes that he was afraid to continue the afterburner and go all the way around because he didn't know what attitude he'd be in once he came around. Yeah. He could easily put himself into a flat spin.
Good. Now, could he? I'm just thinking not to oversimplify it, but could you just, like, if you had, let's say both engines go out and you're now a glider.
You're a brick.
I mean, can you just keep the plane level and then just try to land?
Not a fighter. A fighter's is all engine, it's all body, and the wings are this big because you're typically going 500 miles an hour.
Okay.
Okay, and if you're not doing 500 miles an hour, you're gliding like a stone. And the problem there was you're in the middle of the Atlantic, 32-degree water temperature with 60-foot swells.
Wow. How far was he? So at that point, on a normal situation to get to Newfoundland, how far of a flight would that have been?
He easily would have had enough gas to get to Newfoundland.
Okay.
But he was 500 miles away.
Right.
500 plus.
Yeah.
And losing it fast. So he lost his avionics. He lost his flight controls. Then he lost his avionics. He lost a radar. So things are falling apart one thing at a time.
Wow.
And with his professionalism and experience, there was never a panic. He was a survivability specialist, so he knew ejecting was not an option. With a 32-degree water temperature, you have about 90 seconds of useful consciousness.
Wow. And
a whole lot of wave to pull in your 90-foot cord to inflate your one-man donut to sit in.
Right.
They asked him in Airman magazine, what would your chance be of surviving? And he just said 0. And
so basically, landing was his only option.
Landing was his only option. He was going to ride that aircraft to the end. After we turned, we went to full throttle to where he was supposed to be. And you calculate his speed, our speed.
Right.
But his speed is diminishing so bad. He said that there's a chart that charts their drag.
Right.
If you have one engine out, if you have this happen, if you have that happen, if you have a headwind, they were so far off the chart.
Wow.
He said that no one would ever imagine trying to fly an aircraft in this condition. Yeah. So
it's like everything's
falling apart.
It basically is a glider.
Almost. Right, and you're picturing rivets popping out around him. It was getting dire. So he made the call. I don't care what it takes. Get that tanker down here now.
Right.
So we heard that urgency. We're at full throttle. We got to where he was supposed to be. We pulled back to idle, and everyone's looking around. We're looking around. We're looking around. We shot past him by 12 miles.
Wow.
12 miles.
He was going that slowly?
And
that way?
Right, that slowly. We couldn't imagine an aircraft going that slow.
Wow.
So what we had to do was a giant S-turn like this.
Right.
While he's going straight.
To let him catch up. Yeah.
And we got to within 18 feet. From the end of our boom to his aircraft.
But I mean, even if you're there, I'm thinking, even if the boom can reach him, does he have any kind of stability, or can you're used to loading, fueling gas with a nice flat normal plane?
An air-to-air refueling is a very tricky situation. It's like a person who does sheetrocking. If you can take really well, you do it every day. Boom, you can knock it out. Okay, it's second hand. If you or me try to do that, then it's going to take you a week to do one run.
Right. Basically.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, these guys are professionals, and it's hard enough to do at altitude, at speed, flat and level.
Exactly.
Well, Ghost is now flying at a 45-degree angle, almost a 90-degree angle, in a dive.
Wow.
So we had to put our aircraft into a dive to
stay with it.
To go with him.
Wow.
So, and we're at idle. And we were going too fast. So my pilot, I'm listening at this point. Right. And I hear him make the call. Speed brakes up. So we put our speed brakes up, and we're still going too fast. Okay. Speed brakes up, flaps 30% down. Right. Still going too fast. Right. Speed brakes, flaps, landing gear down, and we're still going too fast at idle. The only thing keeping us airborne is that we're going to dive. Wow. And otherwise, we wouldn't have enough left. Enough lift.
So even just lowering the aircraft, the landing gear, even if you're not going to use it, will create drag. Is that
create drag? Yep. That's why they tuck away underneath an aircraft.
Right.
So my pilot did this maneuver to slow our aircraft down even more, which isn't even on the books. Right. But he did it, and I'm going to save that part for the book.
That's fine. Okay. You're okay.
And we basically had to back up to him in a dive.
Oh, really?
To gain that other 18 feet.
Wow.
From idle.
I mean, is anybody, are you in the back looking, and when you back up a car in a driveway, go, forward? I mean, other than the people flying the plane, now that it's a unique situation, do you have other people chiming in with where you're located?
Yeah, it was a team effort. You had to hear the communication. It was incredible. Wow. It was like they had tried it before. But this is not an event that you practice for. Right, they don't train for it. They don't even talk about it. It was only practiced. It was only attempted once before during the Korean War.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It's not...
was that a successful attempt or no?
To be honest with you, I haven't even got the statistics on that. I'm sorry. I'll have to...
No,
I'll get back to you on that.
That's okay. I'm just curious.
It's not...
I mean, did you know, when did you learn that happened in Korea? Was it since you've been doing this research, or back then did you already know something like this had happened?
Not until months after it happened.
Okay.
And it started getting publicized. It made front pages of Stars and Stripes.
Oh, wow.
Which is, I have my name on the front page of Stars and Stripes, which was a very big thing for us. We were well known in Europe by the time we got there.
Oh, wow.
It was a 6-page...
So you guys ended up still getting to Europe?
We did.
Wow. I should let you finish what goes on there.
Okay, so... We actually got to this aircraft, and his aircraft was skewed in such a position that the refueling boom couldn't even make a connection.
Wow.
Again, there was a very daring move to correct that. All right, what he did was my pilot, my boom operator. Right. He's positioned in the back of the aircraft, underneath the level of the floor. Right. Laying down on a pallet, looking out a window. Okay. And he moved the boom around the canopy and actually hooked the side of the aircraft to roll it over with the boom. Wow. Just so he can make the refuel connection. And at that point, we used our refueling boom as a tow bar. Okay. The boom nozzle is about this big around. Okay. With 2 little relief cuts on the side that it hydraulically operated arms will hold on to the lock, and that's how they transfer fuel. Okay. We use that for a tow bar.
Now the other thing I'm thinking is, okay, so you refuel this plane. Is it still in enough shape to be able to land anyway? You know what I mean?
Yeah. This is only now still the tip of the iceberg.
Okay.
We've only gotten
Wow.
an eighth of the way into the story.
Wow.
So after we made this connection, we started coming around and trying to get some altitude.
Okay.
I'm laying down next to the boom operator at this point, looking out the window, and I can see this boom bending. It's a straight solid pipe, and it looks now like a Zebco 202 pulling a big mouth bass out of the reservoir.
Wow. Oh
it's bending like this.
Wow.
And I looked at the boom operator, and I looked at the aircraft, and he looked at me and looked at the aircraft, and he goes, "I know." And we just pictured it snapping off our aircraft.
And some of that is because you guys are trying to control the speed and all the other stuff.
From a downward dive, we're bringing him around like this, and the weight of his aircraft is bending the boom.
Because he's going slower than you.
Correct. And
which is wild because it's a much smaller plane
to go up. Right.
That's amazing.
And so we're starting to get a little altitude, a little bit more altitude.
Right.
But then he's still going way too slower than us.
Yeah.
He pulls the boom out to its limits, and then there's what's called a brute force disconnect, where the mechanism can't hold that much torque.
Right.
And he snaps off the end.
Right.
He tailed over and went to another dive.
Oh, wow.
We had a round over like this. Now, like I said, if you see in a video of an air refueling, how turbulent it is, and that's the best of conditions.
That's ideal.
Now let's add speed brakes up, flaps down, landing gear down, in a dive, at idle. It's like an Apollo rocket taking off. You know, everything is vibrating and shaking, and the noise is deafening. And now we're also contending with degrading weather conditions.
Oh, no.
Clouds are rolling in. Visibility is a factor. It was Murphy's Law that day. It went from brilliant to hell over high water.
Yeah, literally, right?
And so we went in for the second hookup.
Right.
Now we're going through that whole scenario again. We made the second hookup, and as we're coming around, pilot looks down at the altimeter, and we're at 1,500 feet. Me and the boom operator and the other crew chief, Mike, are laying down next to the boom operator looking out the window, and we can actually see the foam coming off the waves, breaking below us.
Oh, wow. That's how close you were.
1,500 feet.
Wow.
My son brought me parachuting for my birthday last year.
Oh, my God.
We jumped out at 10,000 feet.
Right.
And we're at 1,500 feet in a 707 with a fighter in tow. So we come around for the second hookup, and again, it's bending the boom. We get a little bit more altitude, and again, another brute force disconnect. It tails over.
Right.
Now, like I said, usually after one brute force disconnect, it's so damaged you can't reconnect again.
Right.
But now we're going in for a third hookup.
Oh my God.
We shouldn't be able to go in for a third hookup.
Right.
We came around again, same scenario, all over again. Little more altitude, little more altitude. We finally get up to 20,000 feet, level off, and now we're bringing them to Newfoundland.
Right.
Before all that happened, before we made the first hookup, the navigator, Wojo, is in constant contact with Gander Tower, looking for lower and lower clearance.
Right.
And at one point, Gander says, "You're below our radar. You're on your own."
Mm-hmm.
And at that point, they deployed SARS, which is search and rescue.
Okay.
And talking to my seasoned veteran, crew chief, that's when it got very real for him. This was my first trip, so I have no reference.
Right.
But he's seen other instances of mechanical failures, nothing to this extent.
Right.
And when he heard SARS was deployed, that's when he became the most concerned. Seeing the concern in his face, brought it home for me.
Sure. Yeah.
So the passengers were having a very rough time. It was a very rough flight.
I'm sure.
From a dive, altitude, dive, and so there was lots of baggies being distributed.
Sure. Not exactly normal turbulence on your flight to LA or something.
It was terrible. Well, we finally got to Gander.
Right.
I'm leaving a lot of good parts out. I just hope you know.
No, that's fine.
And
that's fine.
We finally get to Gander, and there are some other mechanical failures that happen on the way. Right at the moment of landing.
Right.
But I'll give it away and say that he does land.
Right.
The aircrafts can't fly again, so him and his wingman land. We refuel our aircraft. They all get on our plane, and we head to England. And again, because all those passengers were
Oh, right.
On their honeymoons.
Yeah.
There was a couple bottles of champagne involved. But we got to England, and they had all heard about it. And it's like that scene from Top Gun where he comes back from the dogfight, and the alert force was there, the lights were on, high fives by everybody. Yeah, we were celebrities. It was great.
That's really cool.
Yeah, it was fantastic. And then we were all in England for 5 days.
Did you get recognized in some way formally by the service? I was just thinking that.
The flight crew received the McKay Trophy. I wasn't officially a flight crew. I was on the aircraft. It was my aircraft.
Right.
But I was an enlisted guy. The flight crew members received the McKay Trophy, which is the Air Force's Outstanding Flight of the Year award.
Right.
It kind of looks like the Stanley Cup.
Oh, really?
And their names get engraved on it with the mission, and it's displayed in the Air and Space Museum in Washington, D.C.
Oh, interesting.
In the Smithsonian.
I've been there. Probably seen it. Never knew
if
what
you
it
saw
was.
this big Stanley Cup looking thing,
I would recognize Stanley Cup and me go way back.
Yeah,
so I'm surprised I didn't remember it, but that's great.
Yeah,
that's great.
And so they received that award, which is very outstanding for them. And very happy they received that. Mike and I received, attaboys. Nice little blue piece of paper.
It was funny when you were saying about, like you said, you were there, sort of, not a passenger, but, but I wonder, your weight, how much that played into it. I mean, if you're trying to get the plane to go slower, it's a good thing you're on the plane in some ways.
Right.
You can look at it it's always how much overall cargo you have.
There's things and circumstances that happened that you didn't even realize. It's daily interactions, daily maintenance, things that happened weeks ahead of time, weeks before this event that all contributed to the outcome. Right. And if I remember one major thing in particular, which I'm definitely going to say for the movie, that it was a mechanical thing that. We were trying to make a decision on the aircraft to change something or not, and my inexperience, I was going to go with the professionals, the specialists, and go with his advice until my experienced crew chief stepped in and says, "No, we're doing this because of that." Wow! And that was, boy, did that jump out of my memory after this event happened? Yeah, sure. And that was exactly why he did that. Wow! But the flight crew members, the training that they had. Just, coincidentally, shortly before this happened, it was all circumstances that we had the right flight crews, with the right equipment, with the right training, right at the right time, and it was amazing the way this whole thing turned out.
Like the Apollo 13 mission, where you look at some of the things that had gone on, steps prior to do that with the oxygen tank and even. The one astronaut who couldn't go on, because they thought he'd get the measles, ends up being the one in the simulator. It was like all those kinds of scenarios.
Exactly.
Like if that just happened to happen, maybe he's there, but maybe there's no one on the ground who's as qualified as he is to help out. It's just like, it's wild.
All those pieces have to be there. Yeah. They have to be there. Yeah. We so like what we were talking about at the beginning. I'm writing this book. It's called Hell Over High Water. Okay. And it's actually gotten the attention of a screenwriter. In L.A. Okay. And his name is Mark Romick, President and CEO of Noble House Entertainment. Okay. And he's very excited about it. He says that this story has all the elements to be an epic movie.
Oh, I can see that. I mean, even just the book. I mean, have you've been writing this book for how long?
I've been writing the book for over 12 years.
Okay, wow.
And before that, there was research and teaching myself how to write.
Oh, yeah, sure.
I bought the Screenwriter's Bible and several other manuals.
Yeah, good for you.
And forced myself into
it.
That's
good.
And then I put all my research together.
So 11 years ago? I mean, how far after, since it's happened, and what kind of finally said, you know what, I gotta just do this?
Well, I've kept in touch with the flight crews, with the people involved. My crew chief, we talk quite often. We went to one Air Force reunion. My base closed down shortly after I got out. Okay. It was part of that massive, base closures. Right. And he lives right near the base, so I ran into him again at a pre-reunion we had, and then there's our first official big reunion is this summer, and I can't wait. And many of us are going to get back together.
I was going to ask you that.
But in doing the research for the book and talking to the flight crew members, like I said earlier, we lost a couple of members, and I've been writing it for so long. I just got complacent with it. I'm writing a book. I write a book.
Right.
And I actually forgot about finishing the book. And then I realized, our pilot passed away from a heart attack. Wojo got hit by a car. We're all getting older.
How did a screenwriter hear about your book? Did you do that or
online? I actually looked for a screenwriter.
Oh, you did. Okay.
Yeah. There's several online sites you can go to. And
do they ask you to like submit a portion of what you've written or
right,
the idea?
Right. You put a premise on there.
Okay.
This is what I'm doing. This is what I want to do with it.
Right.
You don't give the house away.
Of course.
And people bid on writing your book.
Oh wow.
I had 20 offers.
Wow. I was just going to ask you if anybody else.
I had 20 offers. Many of them were very serious people. Some of them were military, Air Force people.
Okay.
That do some writing here and there. And so you have to research all of them and what's their expertise, what some background, what can they bring to the table.
And the other thing I'm thinking is whether or not, how do they want to do this? Do they want to portray it as a true story, based on a true story, just some fiction thing that happens to be coincide? There's so many ways a screenwriter can use your material.
And it's funny, the whole time I'm writing my book, I compared it to two movies.
Okay.
For two different reasons.
Okay.
I compared it to Top Gun because that's a fantastic movie.
Right. Right.
Beautiful, great special effects, good cinematography.
You're right. That's right.
But it was all fiction.
Right.
It's completely fiction.
Correct.
And then Perfect Storm.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
That's right.
They sold on based on a true story.
Right.
Where a fishing boat went out, lost radio contact,
mm-hmm.
and then Hollywood took over with the two big storms right down the middle of the giant wave. The guy swinging out on the boom, welding the aircraft.
I haven't seen the movie, so thank you for that.
Oh, spoiler alert! Spoiler alert! So,
just kidding.
But all the events that happened on that boat, that was all Hollywood. Because I don't know, the boat went down. Never came back. My story is more exciting than Top Gun.
Right.
But more real than Perfect Storm.
Right. Oh, wow.
There's firsthand accounts. Myself, I've been writing the story, and the rest of the remaining flight crews were there. It's documented. It's in the Stars and Stripes. It's in Airman Magazine.
Mm-hmm.
It was on the boom operator and co-pilot were interviewed on, I believe it was History Channel.
Oh wow!
On a show they did about 50 years of air refueling.
Okay.
And they had the big story. They were the big story.
Interesting.
It had been on segments of other.
Now you were mentioned too something like since that has happened, since your incident, what sort of either design changes or strategic changes or even training has happened now?
I don't know of any.
Oh, okay.
I really don't.
Wow. I understand you're writing the book, but like people who are involved, are they like if something like that happens in the military, are you required to then after the fact, document what happened, or is there like a black box kind of thing that recorded all those? Communications like that?
Well, that's what I wanted to talk about before, was the communication between the boom operator, the pilot that we were saving, and our pilot, and the other guys, the navigator and co-pilot also. But it was amazing to hear their professionalism. They never wavered. There was never a hesitation. It was like their skill and their training took over.
Like it was a maneuver they already had done before.
Exactly. Wow. And being the new guy, and this was my first mission.
Wow.
I didn't know we didn't do this every day. Wow. Honest to God. Until we landed. As soon as we hit the ground, all I'm thinking is my engines are burnt out. I'm throwing down a case of engine oil, a ladder, my toolbox. I immediately run over to the my outboard engine, and I'm checking engine oil, and I'm looking at the fighter that just saved it. All his oil just dripped off it. Tail off the aircraft. Him and his backseater got out. They hugged each other and they were inspecting their aircraft. And
did the other fighters, everybody else, get to England? Okay.
Everyone got to England. The only ones that stayed with us was his wingman. So they left his fighter there also, and they jumped on board. And I'm sure they sent a cargo aircraft to go pick them up.
Okay. So never again did you bug your supervisor like, put me on one of those, throw me a bone.
This was my only big DUI.
Oh, I was done. Really?
Wow. It was once and done.
You had 2 more years you were in the
correct. I had only gone to Edwards Air Force Base just for a 2-day thing. It was a real quick medevac situation. The base was so remote that the hospitals couldn't handle any major traumas. premature births, burn victims.
Right.
So part of our agreement to have a base up there was we always had an aircraft ready for medevac. So there was always an aircraft ready to fly. Hospital would call, we have a patient coming out, boom, we would start the engines, get the aircraft ready to go.
Right.
The flight crew would just get on the aircraft that's already running, throw a passenger on board, and we would take off to anywhere that was the best facility for that condition.
Wow.
So we would go to Boston, we would fly to Washington, D.C., we would fly to Bangor.
Okay. What's the equivalent? Like I learned from having been in Gander that it was the easternmost place to refuel. Like if you were coming from LA, like so if you're going west across the U.S., like is it Alaska, the Bering Strait? I mean, where can you last refuel before you go over the Pacific from the continental U.S.? Do you know?
I would imagine Alaska. We have Air Force bases in Alaska.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I heard it's beautiful too. I haven't been there, but
my grandfather used to go. Has pictures of him, Siberian Huskies, and we'd go hunting up there and all that. So.
I always pictured Alaska as being Siberia.
Yeah.
But everybody I know that had been stationed out there, they want to move there after the service.
One of my bucket list things is take a cruise up to Alaska.
That's on my list too.
From Portland.
I hear they're beautiful.
Yeah, Oregon, not Portland. So that's right.
Yeah, beautiful. But so over the years, talking to all the veterans that I have about this, and a little bit of research and their experiences and everything else, I realized that the professionalism and the heroism that my crew and the crew that we saved, how it was just very task oriented.
Wow.
This broke, what's the next thing? This broke, like Apollo 13.
Right.
Okay, well, you don't fret, you just fix it.
Right.
Oh, all right, well that broke. Next thing.
And not only that, I think about when Lovell tells the story, and while they're up there, there's that scene where talking about has it ever happened before, and he's recounting he was flying over, the ocean, all those lights went out, and because the lights went out, he could see the algae and get himself home. So it's like even like I could imagine people who went through this, something like that might happen, and now it's still not in training, but you have that experience that you went through, but you're right, it's amazing when they can just very methodically and almost emotionally, it's just like you're you can remove yourself from the situation and be able to just do that. It's amazing. Yeah.
So my goal for this book and hopefully movie is to recognize every one of our country's servicemen and women, past and current, for their selfless bravery and acts of heroism that go unrecognized. I can't even imagine what these kids are going through in the Middle East, these men and women.
Yeah.
The ones that are lucky enough to get to Walter Reed because they took a bullet for a friend. You forget about the guys that couldn't make it to Walter Reed.
Right.
So.
And even you were talking about just normal refueling is not exactly putting up sheetrock. It's like you actually have to just the tension or the stress of just doing the job that you're supposed to do. Let alone
always that element
when circumstances happen like that.
So that's why I'm writing the book.
Good for you. That's awesome.
Yeah, and I would love to after it's published. And there's one veteran that I worked with who inspired me. Here near the end of it, and I'm going to bring him with me after the book is published. I'm going to take a stack of them. And I'm going to go down to Walter Reed in Washington.
Oh wow!
And visit with the men and women in there. I want to hear their stories, sign the book.
Oh my God, that's a really
and hand it right to them.
Wow. That's
and just thank them.
Sure.
It's very important to thank a veteran. You never know.
Yeah, you're right.
I don't want it to be cliche because you never know what they went through, or what they go through.
Right.
So,
to preserve your freedom, basically.
Exactly.